It's Friday Night Lights, and we have prospects to watch tonight in 2 games for college football. Who needs to make a statement, and why is it Kansas quarterback Jalon Daniels? We're going to discuss this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parsons. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. Got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at TheTalentCode. You talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. Every listen is greatly appreciated. DP, it is a college football Friday preview, so we're going to bring our classic statement in, make a statement. Which players from the Friday slate of games have to make a statement? Then we're going to talk about some of these second-tier prospects, right? And we always know between these, 4 teams, there's always good players that come out of nowhere, right? We had, Julius Brents one year. We always have players out of Kansas, UNLV. There's a wide receiver that everybody's talking about. And then we're going to talk about these sleeper prospects. So, DP, let's get this thing going.
LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Keith, make a statement. I went through a couple different prospects and like, man, who needs to make a statement for me? And I think we talked about him as a guy. I think when we talked about bag fumblers, Kansas quarterback Jalon Daniels. Like, this is a make a statement game for you. For one, UNLV over there with that go offense with Brendan Marion calling plays and getting the weapons that they have, they're going to be able to stress your defense and be able to put points up on the board, right? You got to be able to match that and play efficient football. This guy is a dual threat quarterback. He's got a good arm. He's got big weapons. He's got a kind of a smaller slot Z receiver that I'll get to in the sleeper segment. He's got weapons. And then you got Devin Neal in the backfield. Like, he's got enough weapons to complement his game, and this is a game that I need to see him just step up to the plate and knock it out. Like, this is like we kind of gave him, even though we said he fumbled the bag a little bit, we still gave him a mulligan because it's like, well, he is coming off of the injury last year. He's probably trying to knock some rust off. This is a game that, okay, it's week for you. It's your 3rd game. You're at home, Keith, a night game in Kansas. Let's make sure that rust is off. Let's go out here and ball. My mega statement player is quarterback from Kansas, Jalon Daniels.
Yeah, DP, I really want to double down on that. Just because you talk about this quarterback race, and we talked about this, right? It's starting to put itself in tiers. It's not, people aren't supplanting themselves, I guess, in peer rankings, right? Like, there's not a peer QB1 or peer QB2 across the board, or even 3, right? But it's starting to kind of separate itself as far as tiers. And so I'm looking at quarterback Jalon Daniels, and I'm saying this, like, put yourself in that tier 2, tier 3 category, right? Like go ahead and put yourself there. What I believe he was returning from an injury, like you said, and it's just the rust, right? It's the making a couple mistakes here and there, and we know that Devin Neal's in the backfield, right? And he can tote the rock, he can do his thing, and it's like, hey, this could be a high-powered offense. This Kansas team was picked by some, right, to win the Big 12, but we'll say it like this: you're not going to win the Big 12 like that. Right? You're not going to win the Big 12 at this pace. So you definitely have to pick up your play, and you're a dual threat quarterback. So figure it out. Get it done with your legs sometimes, right? Make a couple plays with your legs. You have a good arm. Push the ball down the field. Make some plays via that way. So it's simply, get the job done. Then I have another make a statement player, DP. I'm going to look at cornerback Tacario Davis. And it's because there was a lot of hype in the offseason, right? It flew crazy during, I guess, that period of July and August, right? Well, everything has kind of died down, and so people finding stuff to talk about, right? And he was one name that's like, hey, this might be the best corner in the entire country. Well, we're trying to figure that out. and go make some plays, right? Make some plays in this game, make some things happen. And he's what, 6'3-ish, almost 6'4", like some people saying, maybe between 6'2" and 6'4", right? And he's one of those long corners. And so you automatically have to put him in the bracket with, and I'm not saying he's as good as this guy, right? But put him in the bracket of the Sauce Gardners, the Julius Brents, right? Those type of corners. And it's like, hey, there's variation to that, right? Like there's the first round version of that, but then there's also the third, fourth round version. And you remember we had coming out of Mississippi State, I believe his name was Martin Emerson, right? Remember the corner from Mississippi State got drafted to the Cleveland Browns, which is playing good football. But what I'm saying is still there's tiers to that also, as far as how high can you go as a prospect. If people talking about you as cornerback one, then you got to show up and dominate and make some plays.
Yeah, and Tacario, he hasn't played poorly, but so far in the season, 8 targets. He's been targeted 8 times. He's allowed 5 catches for, I believe, like 49 total yards or anything like that. So he hasn't been fully tested. And I think Kansas State, for one, is going to run the ball, try to create that play action pass with Avery Johnson in the backfield. Also, he's a dual threat guy that for Kansas State. So if you can run the ball, get kind of that single one-on-one coverage, I wouldn't be surprised if they try and test Tacario Davis down the field, Keith. And one thing that, like you said, kind of built in that he's built is that tall, high hip cover 3 corner. What's going to be the biggest thing that people are going to look at is like, all right, how fluid are you? How quick can you swivel your hips and turn and mirror and match guys? Or are you simply a side saddle bail technique cover 3 corner? Can we put you in man-to-man and trust that you can disrupt guys? And I think this is a game where, and I think the long speed, because he does have the long legs so he can stride, I want to see him test him down the field. I want to see him one-on-one, test him against some of these athletic receivers that they have at Kansas State, off of the play action like we expect them to do. So, yeah, this is definitely a make-a-statement game, because one thing about Kansas, they're going to run the ball, but if you can stop the passing game and make them one-dimensional, then you can try to load up against the run and stop the running back and the running quarterback that they have and limit that offense.
Yeah, and Kansas State, is always a tough team, right? Like they're just one of those teams where they're going to consistently show up, they're going to play tough, and now whether they win 6 games or 9, 10 games that year, right? You're probably still going to get the same formula as far as what are they going to do to execute to be able to win the game. So definitely, and I want to see him show up in a run game too, because one thing with the Julius Brents conversation was that Brents, some people was like, hey, you can put this guy as safety for you, right? Like if corner doesn't work out, all else fails, he can play some safety for you because of how physical he was, willing to come down in the box and tackle. So I think this is, if it is still a heavy run game, it's still an important piece, because you're like, hey, okay, cool. And maybe this guy can't move exactly how we want him to move as a cover man-to-man corner. We can kick him down. We can kick him inside, and let him play safety, maybe some strong safety for us, right? He has that big frame, maybe put a couple pounds on him, and now he can play safety for us, and we have a good safety. But DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. And we're going to talk about some second-tier prospects from these 4 teams. We have 2 matchups on Friday, 4 teams. We're going to talk about some of these prospects coming up next.
When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Guys, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, on this very podcast. From NFL MVP preseason betting odds to college football playoffs, or Heisman preseason betting odds. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every single regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. And if that's not enough, be sure to check out FanDuel's Profit Boost in the app and use it for FanDuel's double your winnings for all of this Sunday's pregame moneyline bets. Profit Boost started yesterday on Thursday. View your account page now to learn more about your boost. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Second tier prospects to watch Friday night during Friday Night Lights. Keith, I feel like I've been on a running back heavy train right now. Like I've been talking about running backs a lot, but that's a good reason because they matter. And this is a talented running back class. Kansas State, Keith, starting running back DJ Giddens, 6'1", 212. I could have put him in it was a guy I thought about putting this in my make a statement player for the night. Keith, he's coming off 2 back-to-back games over 100 yards rushing. Wildly enough, they haven't given the ball enough in the red zone, or they haven't converted in the red zone, so he doesn't have any rushing touchdowns right now. I believe he doesn't have any rushing touchdowns at the moment. But right now, he has 33 attempts, 238 yards. He's averaging 7.2 yards per carry right now on the season, and he's averaging over 4 yards per carry after contact. So this is a physical downhill guy, but also even last week in the game, targeted 6 times. He's been targeted 10 times so far this season. And even last week, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 63 yards. So he's showing that he can do pretty much it all, right? Be a 3-down back. And he has that similar to what we see for the rest of this majority of the guys in this class. He has that NFL size, height, weight, strength, speed in the open field. He's more fluid and nimble and light-footed than I expected him to be when I first watched him as a big body back. And I think for Arizona, Keith, and I believe they only have one. If you spread them out, you go on 11 personnel, they only have one defensive lineman, I think, that they routinely play that's over 300 pounds. Their other their ends are like 275, 280, and I think their 3 tech is like 280 as well. So what does that tell me? Run the ball, right? Run the freaking ball and test them. Like if you're light in the pants, if you got a light defensive line, I'm running it at you. You're gonna have to show me you can stop it. And I would feed DJ Giddens. I think this is a guy that I believe that I don't think he's eligible, but he does have like 1 more year eligibility, so he could elect to go back. But this is a guy that we need to go ahead and get on the radar. He's talented.
Yeah, DP, that's another name, man. I told you, you've been pulling the names out the hat, man. You've been deep in your bag these past couple episodes. Definitely appreciating that. That's definitely somebody to look for. But DP, I don't think we talked about potentially the best running back of this 4-team situation, and that's Devin Neal, right? We haven't talked about him, and talking about second-tier prospects, I want to pose a question. We all know Devin Neal's talented, right? I believe he just had a good game, 100-yard game this past weekend. Where does he rank? Because we haven't talked about him in the big perspective of running backs and running back order. Where does he rank for you? Like when people cut the TV on, what type of talent are they watching with Devin Neal?
Man, and I think I put this in my report, my summer report. This is a guy because he can catch the ball in the backfield. He runs the ball well. He's one of the most creative runners in terms of he gets you in the alley one-on-one. He's going to make you miss. He's got great footwork, really good lateral agility, very patient. And the way he did, like, it wasn't, I mean, he had a 100-yard game last week against Illinois in a loss, but like last year, what he put on performance against that Illinois defense, which had like Jerzon Newton or Johnny Newton and all those guys, like it was an outstanding performance. He's in that 5 to 7 range right now, and I think he's got a real big shot at working himself up. This is a guy at 5'11", listed at 215, Keith. I think Devin Neal can absolutely be a 12 to 1,500 yard from scrimmage type of player in the NFL. In terms of like those off with the offenses, like the wide zone stuff we see, but also throwing the ball and using your running backs in the passing game. You can do that with Devin Neal. Also, he can line up in the slot out wide. You can motion him around, get him manufactured touches because he can make plays in space and make guys miss and get yards after the catch and after contact. Yeah, I think he's one of the best backs in college football. He's just, again, unless, if Kansas was if their offense was humming and they look like the best team in the Big 12, people will probably start taking notice a little bit more.
Mhm.
But give it some time. I think people will realize, hey man, like, and I've tweeted about him the whole summer. I had multiple clips on Twitter about him. This dude is good, and people need to take notice of his game because he's a 3-down back.
Yeah, that's what I really want to get eyes on him and just watch him control and dictate the pace. We talked about it earlier in the podcast, and I told you how Ashton Genty dictated pace in that game, right? So I'm excited to watch this game and see how Devin Neal's able to control it because, like you said, if Jalon Daniels comes out and he struggles again early on, right, you can bet your money, right, that the offensive coordinator is going to say, you know what, we don't have to run ourselves out of this, right? He's going to hand the football off to Devin Neal. So that's definitely somebody I wanted to discuss, and it's definitely somebody I'm excited to watch just overall. But DP, we keep talking about second tier prospects, right? And this is the guy I want to talk about, Jonah Savania. I hope I got that right. I had to get some more pronunciations together. I hope I got that right. But the reason he's in the second tier, I know I still see him in a lot of the first round mocks. I needed to see more out of him, DP. There were some things, and I know people were mixed reviews on Jordan Morgan coming out. I thought Jordan Morgan was a step or two ahead of him, or a tier or two ahead of him. And I didn't have him as a first round guy. I had more of a third, fourth round type of developmental player with good measurables, good traits, but just inconsistencies, right? With playing with high pad level and lunging at people. So I just want to see how he plays in this game, right? To see if he plays in a more controlled manner. Did his body posture change, right? Is he playing with better pad level? How is he driving defenders off of the football in the run game? So that's definitely a guy that I'm looking out for, that I know, we put him in the second tier prospect category, but for a lot of people, he's in the first tier. But I want to check him out and still trying to work through that evaluation of him because there were some things that I definitely had concerns about when I watched him.
No, I mean, like Jonas Savane, like at 6'5", almost 340, right? Like, I think he hasn't really been tested completely just yet, through New Mexico and North Arizona. Crazy enough, he flipped sides against North Arizona. He played left tackle the entire game. Like, I didn't expect that to happen because he's been mostly at right tackle and right guard through the first 2 years of his career. So that I got to actually go back and check that tape out and see how he moved. I know that there is some buzz with NFL scouts and personnel. Like, he is viewed right now as a guard, and they're viewing him as one of the best interior offensive lineman prospects in the draft. If he, talking about kicking them down. And this is a game where, like, in pass rush, like, think about Brendan Mott, who's 6'5", 240 for Kansas State. Is a guy that can get that first step quickness, get upfield. If they don't run the ball and they want to try and get the passing game going that struggled against North Arizona, they didn't really have a robust passing attack last week, Keith. If they want to get that passing game going and you allow undersized, quick twitch, faster edge rushers to get fire off upfield, how is Jonah going to handle that? Right? Like the kick slide, being able to protect the outside shoulder and inside counters. So I think this will probably be his first real test. But I'm not going to lie. If I'm Arizona, I'm letting him put all his weight down on these smaller defensive ends. Let's run the ball. Let's get the ball up, north and south. Let's get upfield. But I agree. As a second-tier prospect, Jonas Savane is a guy that, like you said, been a lot of first-round mocks at tackle. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, the only way I think he gets to stay at tackle is if J.C. Latham and Talise Fuaga showcase very well in the NFL. Talise did, I think, for the most part, did week one. JC has some issues, but it's like he's playing left tackle. He's never played left tackle. He was a right tackle at college, right? So if those two big physical tackles who people had slated at guard, if they can play well, it might change some of the scouts' opinion. But right now, he is viewed as an interior offensive lineman until he proves otherwise.
Yeah, so let's check that out, right? And there are couple other names, right? But we'll leave them for what? For the sleeper segment, DP. We're going to talk about the guys that's flying completely under the radar that have an opportunity to make plays. And guess what? I'm going to tell you, UNLV has a playmaker on the outside that I know we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Do you want to play prospects alongside comedian Drewski, rapper and podcaster Joe Budden, and MMA champion Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each and every week. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's the code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our every day is. Keith, it's time to wake the people up about some sleeper prospects that's going to take the field tonight on Friday night. Keith, let's talk about it. The receiver, UNLV, Ricky White.
Ricky! That's a little boys in the hood reference right there.
The hood reference. He's got a nice little matchup, Keith. He's got a nice little matchup going up against Cobee Bryant, and I think Dotson. The other, those are two under. Could have put them in the second tier prospects. Two under radar corners. What are your expectations for Ricky White?
Yeah, I mean, I expect him to do this, right? Try to work to be able to push vertical, and then just try to win with quickness also, right? I think he has a fairly good frame on him, right? And as far as movement skill, you're talking about short area quickness, just be able to try to create some separation. But you talked about this matchup, right? These are two corners that can very well play man to man, right? We talked about them like these are the guys that show up to the Senior Bowl, and everybody's like, wait, who are these guys? They're pretty doggone good, right? And they quickly elevate. So you almost could predict, and I don't say this, but almost potentially two top 100 corners he's going against. So his flaws, right, as far as we're talking about start-stop ability and being able to sink his hips and run the detailed routes and things like that are going to be on display in this matchup because those guys are the type of guys that be in your hip pocket. So that's what I'm gonna be looking out for him. But I want to see how does he get it done, right? Because I think somebody you can compare it to is potentially maybe like a Devontae Walker from last year from North Carolina. Maybe you can go that type of comp. And Tez somewhat struggled a little bit at the Senior Bowl, right, against those man-to-man corners. And you can tell people being in his vicinity, in his space, kind of messed with him a little bit, right? Like even catches that, should have been routine catches. It's still like just people being in his bubble, right? He didn't like people in his bubble. And so I'm looking forward to see what Ricky White does as far as being able to adjust to people in that capacity, right? And how does he handle that? Because he could be a prospect drafted really high, right? But it's going to be matchups like this that is kind of going to dictate where he goes. And this is probably, haven't looked at the rest of UNLV schedule, but this might be the best set of corners he's going to play. And we talk about a resume game. This is a resume game for him because those two corners for Kansas, I feel really good about saying they're going to elevate themselves in the draft situation. And we're going to go back to this matchup come February and be like, hey, how did Ricky White perform in that matchup?
And Cobee Bryant is one of the more physical, handsy corners in college football. Right, and this is a guy that he'll play press man. They'll also play a lot of cover three. Really good instincts, very good eye discipline to read the quarterback. They'll take the ball away, right? So for him, and Ricky's an explosive receiver that wins vertically down the field, and they like to get him going, on the deep ball. So if they're playing that cover three, like I said, what does it look like? How are you able to adjust and adapt to not just you, but also the offensive coaching staff to getting you open against the deeper coverages that they're trying to take away your A trait, your speed. And I think for him, even though he's a little bit of a wiry frame receiver, but if he can go out there and get free from these guys, show good footwork at the line of scrimmage, get vertical, especially if it's man to man, and they'll tend to leave Cobee Bryant on the island. That's the moment, right? If you get one-on-one press man on the island, Ricky, can you beat him at the line of scrimmage? Because if you get even, Ricky's leaving. Like Cobee Bryant's got good speed, but Ricky White is fast, man. So it's like I always thought about like Robbie Anderson and those type of those straight line speed guys, those guys you want the deep crossers, different things like that are just a terror to have to try and defend. Because I'm gonna stay with a wide receiver, and I'm gonna go to Kansas, and I'm gonna go to Luke Grimm. Keith, this is a guy. This is because they got two big body receivers on the outside, and he plays kind of slot and Z for them. Because they got Lawrence Skinner, who's like 6'5", 200 pounds. Then they got Lawrence Arnold.
Skinner.
Yeah. So like you got those guys, Quentin Skinner and Lawrence Arnold. You got those guys on the outside is the big body kind of contested catch jump ball. Luke Grimm is that chain mover. Like that's that guy that who and I hate to do this because it's white receiver comps. I don't like to do it, but like I think he could be that kind of Luke McCaffrey type of receiver in this draft class. That guy is just, he knows how to get to his spots. His route running is good, in like understanding leveraging coverages, all that, right? If it's man, he knows how to work pre-snap alignment. If it's zone, he knows how to find the soft spots in it. And I think that's a way to get Jalon Daniels comfortable. Get him those easy targets, right? Those quick checkdowns, those quick passes to Luke Grimm, to when then you start getting favorable matchups, you get your quarterback into a rhythm. I just think in a wide receiver class that to me, truthfully, is still wide open. I'm not saying he's going to be one of the top guys, but you're talking about guys like being the teams that need a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. And if I remember correctly, I think Luke Grimm also brings some punt return experience in his background as well, and value to his game and profile. Yeah, this is a guy I think you're talking about sleepers. You got to keep eyes on him because I could potentially see him like leading them in receiving yards and receptions in this game.
Yeah, he's the important guy to pay attention to because you compared him to Luke McCaffrey, right? And Luke McCaffrey wound up being a top 100 prospect? I believe he went very, very close to it, right? Or he was good enough to where, and DP, we got to talk about that trade and situation at some point, right? Because when they let go of Jahan Dotson, I thought for sure they were going to get Brandon Ayuk. We have to talk about that. But back to Luke McCaffrey, they feel comfortable with letting Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah, he was the 100th pick. He was
100. Okay,
number 100.
Number 100. Okay, I knew it was close in there. But what you're saying is that hey, like one of those guys that they show up. They go to things like the Senior Bowl, right? They test well. They interview well, right, in their interviews. And then it's like you turn around on draft day, and these guys are sitting as top 100 prospects that were totally off the board, right? And it's not, I get it, Luke McCaffrey, look at the name, but the guy was playing at Rice, right? Nobody was talking about him at this point last year. Nobody was.
He wasn't even the best receiver at the Senior Bowl to be like, oh, well, he popped at the Senior. Like, man, there were guys that were playing better than him. He just had a good game, and that name did help him. So yeah, Luke, it's crazy. Luke Grimm, like yeah, I think he's got a chance to be a nice receiver in this receiver class.
Yeah, DP, I'm gonna wrap this up with talking about Noah Fafita, right? He was a guy that everybody was excited with Arizona. And we talked about Jalon Daniels in Kansas going as far as Jalon can take them. I think it's the same said for Noah Fafita, right? And you have a wide receiver 1, and we can't end the show without talking about wide receiver 1, right? Mr. T-Mac, Teator McMillan. You have a big body guy that you're throwing a football to. It's like, hey, you got to get the job done, right? It's been a while since Arizona has been this talented. And so I think they're in the Big 12 also, right? And I believe this is a ranked matchup. Yeah, you're talking about number 20 versus number 14, them going against Kansas State. Go ahead and win that game, right? And you have a shot to be in the playoffs at the end of the day, right? Like you're fighting to be in the top 12, and you take this Arizona program, which was 2-3 years ago, the worst, them in Colorado sitting at one of the worst programs in the entire country, to now a couple of years later, we're sitting there in the playoffs. So it's like, hey, a lot of pressure on you, get the job done, but you can't get the job done because you have the physical ability. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. Listen, man, I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there, that's my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube. Wherever you listen to podcasts, get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everyday Dayers. Guys, on tomorrow's episode, we're getting into more make-a statements, more second-tier prospects and sleepers for Saturday's games. What prospects that we are going to highlight? Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.